She embodies purity, but also sexuality. The good girl and the bad girl of the time. She's an object, but also a subject. She's a symbol of sexual liberation, but moreover a symbol of patriarchy. Her professional trajectory embodies the perfect prototype of woman for feminism, and her body, the notion of perfection of the anorexic. She's seduced by consumerism and seduces towards it, and she's postmodernity, as some authors have said, condensed into only 29 centimeters. Barbie is that mysterious woman every girl wants to be when adult. But the truth is that she's nothing more than the perfect example of extreme exploitation of women through their dreams of consumption in a post-industrial society. And her plastic body is the perfect proof of that. She came onto the market in 1959 in the post-war era, the baby boom, the electrodomestic industry, the pin-up art, telling women that doing housework in very sexual positions could really make cleaning the house a very exciting experience. We all know that when the war ended, many women that were forced or that were aimed to occupy their husbands' jobs in factories were told to come back home to take care of their families and husbands. So women continually experience a dialectic between oppression and emancipation, between traditional gender expectations and their new professional desires. So that was the historical and social moment that gave birth to the Barbie doll. The idea of Barbie came when Ruth Handler, her designer, saw her daughter playing with paper dolls, and she thought that paper dolls allowed her daughter to project herself in the future, not as a mother or a wife like the traditional toys we find for girls still, but as a woman. So that's why she took a doll based on a German porn cartoon that was called Lily, and brought it to the United States, took it to the United States, and started with the whole Barbie phenomenon. The first Barbie that came onto the market was a young model, and since the beginning she produced many controversies because that was a very sexual object. So Mattel that same year released the Barbie, a bride Barbie. Now, with this example, we can see how since the beginning, Barbie has always been molded to be whatever she's told to be. By patriarchy, by feminists, by whatever, Barbie is just an economical and political instrument to herself. It's like an spiral. And in 1963, this Barbie was released, a Barbie nanny. And we can know she was a nanny and not the baby's mom, because her apron said babysitter, she had a telephone to interact with other people, she also had a clock implying that she had a work schedule. But after the Vietnam War progressed, Mattel, remember Mattel's a corporation, so Mattel changed the message of this Barbie and took another one out to the market whose apron didn't say babysitter, and some books that she brought in this model were replaced by baby food. In 1964, the Sweater Girl Barbie was released, and it was very controversial among feminists because the sweater alluded to women of the pin-up art and some Hollywood stars famous for the size of their breasts. So feminists criticized this doll very much and made Mattel to change the message of Barbie from being feminists criticized it so much that made Mattel change the sweater Barbie for one whose name was Knitting Pretty and came with a little girl. So we can see how when Barbie's been approached of feminism, that was not subliminal like the sexual message of the Sweater Girl Barbie, but it was direct, like, yeah, with the Knitting Pretty. In 1966, there's something very interesting because in 1966, in the middle of the space race, an astronaut Barbie was released. Mattel is from the United States, and we're talking about the Cold War. So let's don't forget that 5 years earlier, the Soviet Yuri Gagarin had flown into space. He didn't reach to the moon like this Barbie did, but he flown into space. And 5 years earlier, the Soviet Valentina Tereshkova also had. So for me, this symbolic achievement was not on behalf of women, like Mattel was trying to express, but again, Barbie was an instrument of this competition for prestige between these two nations at the time. From 1968 to 1973, Barbie didn't have any careers. Well, she had but only a few. And Mattel started releasing Barbies with very colorful dresses, but never sold a hippie Barbie. Why? Because Mattel, again, is a corporation, and they couldn't pronounce against what the U.S. foreign policy and internal policy of that moment symbolized, because if not, they would have maintained the position Mattel had in the market at that time. In 1968, the first black Barbie was released, but the only thing she had in relation to black women was the color of her skin, because her factions still were Caucasians. Simple. In 1969, when sexual politics started to be sold, the feet of Barbie stopped being like this and were flat for the first time. Also, another factory change was made, and it was that she started looking to the front, because she lasted 12 years looking to one side. That means that she didn't look directly to Ken's eyes when she talked to him. After Kate Millett started to made more known the message of feminism, Mattel was trying to adapt all of the new feminist speech movement to Barbie, and put it to Barbie, because if not, feminists were going to criticize Barbie a lot. So that's the moment where Barbie started increasing the numbers of careers and professions where she developed. And we saw dolls as dentist, professor. She even was a presidential candidate, transmitting the message that women had equal possibilities of men to develop their skills and abilities in labor market. But what we haven't noticed when we take these kind of examples is that society doesn't want women to be equal with men or equal to men. Society wants women to be better. For example, those that are sold for little boys had one and only one profession. At that time and now, they have only one profession. But Barbie today has reached 125, and she's only been able to ascend in two, from nurse to doctor and from model to fashion designer. So this gives the hidden message that in order to compete with men in the workplace, we don't need to be equal to them. We need to be better. We need to be perfect. For Barbie, for example, it wasn't enough to be a doctor. She also had to be a physicist. And a physicist/doctor who also fitted into the socialized prototype of beauty, and who couldn't forget her task the traditional patriarchy structure had defined for her. And neither her submissive attitude. For me, this sounds more like an iteration of patriarchy than a conscious message from feminism itself.